Hi, my name is Moalla, and in this tutorial, I would like to speak about SQLite database. You can have one SQLite file, which gives you the ability to store your data in that, and then you can show those data in your application and make your application connected to that file. To make that file, you need one application. I suggest DB Browser for SQLite, which is free, and you can download that from this website. I already installed and opened the application. To create a SQL file for your application, click on File and then New Database. Just give it a name and save it somewhere in the memory of your computer. Before continuing, we need to get familiar with two terms. For example, this is the list of the data that you want to store in your file and you want to show them later in your application. For example, you have two columns. First one is name and the second one is age. Technically, we call each column one field, field of name and field of age. And all together, they will be called table, and you need to give a name to your table. So in DB Browser, here you need to type the name of your table, and here you need to type the name of your fields. So, for example, for table, I type table 1. To create one field, I need to click on Add button. And here I can type the name of my field. I'm supposed to create one field for name and one field for age. But before that, in all tables, there is one field, its name is ID. In following tutorials, you will understand more about the function of this field. So just for now, make it as I'm doing. Its name is ID, and its type is integer, and then it cannot be null. That is primary key, and that is auto increment. If you are not familiar with these options, it's okay. Maybe later we will talk more about them. Now it's time to create name field. Its type is text, and the other field, its type is integer. Now I can click on OK and create my table. As you see here, the table 1 is created. If you want to see the list of fields, you can click on this one. Now I want to type some sample data in my table. So I need to click on this tab. And from here, I choose the name of the table. You can click on this icon each time and create a new row. The file is ready. Now it's time to go to Basic for Android. This is an empty project. First of all, we need to add the file here. The file is added. Now let me explain more about the process that we want to do for the rest of the tutorial. For example, this is the file that you created, and you want to show the list of those items in your application. You need two variables. The first one is SQL variable, and the second one is cursor variable. By SQL variable, you connect your application to that database file. And by cursor variable, you limit the data that you want to show in your application. So after all, we need to go through 3 steps. The first one is copying the file from asset folder to internal folder of the phone, because we cannot connect our application to a file which is in asset folder. The second step is making connection between your application and that file by SQL variable. And the third step, limiting the data that you want from the file. So let's write some codes for these three steps. This is an empty project, and I type those three steps here. The first two ones need to be done in starter service. So let's copy and paste them there. The reason that we do these two steps here in a starter service is that we want them happen before main activity. So the first step is copying the file from asset folder to internal folder. Let's do it. We can copy the file this way. File.copy. We need one source and one target. The source folder is file directory assets, and the name of the file that we want to copy is SQLite DB, which we can see that here too. And the target folder is file directory internal. Now we need a name for target file. It can be anything, like SQL. Wait, do you want to copy the file each time that you run the application? Of course not. So we need to check the existence of the file before copying that. So let's do it. If file.exist where here. Let's copy that there. If that is equal to false, it means if the file doesn't exist there, then you can copy the file. So let's move it up. Okay. So first, we check the existence of the file. If it doesn't exist, we copy that from directory asset to directory internal. So step number one is done. So let's move it here. And let's emit these extra lines. Now it's time to make the second step. As I told you before, making connection to that file can be done by SQL variable, which needs SQL library. So let's activate that. In library tab, I type SQL and I can activate the library. Now I need to define it in process globals. As you know, if I define one variable in process globals, I can have access to that variable in all activities of the program. So let's define it there. Dim SQL as SQL. And then I can initialize that here. SQL.initialize. I need the path of the file. I can copy it from here. For the last argument, we can say create a file if it doesn't exist. So we can type true. Okay, the file is copied and the connection is there between the file and the application. And now it's time to go to the last step, which is here, limiting the data that you want from the file. That can be done by a cursor variable. I can define it in global sub. Now this variable is ready for the last step. Let's move it down. I can initialize the cursor by that SQLite variable from starter. So I can type like this. Cursor is equal to starter.sql. Now we need one query. I don't know if you are familiar with query or not. If you are not familiar with SQL queries, you can check this website, especially this part, SQL Select. So this is the pattern. Select, and then the name of the field, from, and then the name of the table. If you are not sure about your query, you can test that in DB Browser. Here in DB Browser, you can test your query. So I click on that and I type select, for example, name field from the name of the table, which is table 1. And now I can run my query. This is the result, so my query is correct. If you want all the fields from your table, you can type star instead of name. Let's run it again. Now you can see all the fields. Now we can copy this query. And here I can execute one query between two double quotations. Very good. By this query, actually I selected all the rows of my table, but I don't want to show them all now. So I need to go to the first one and show only one of them. So how to go to the first one? By cursor position. So cursor.position is equal to 0, which is equal to first row of my data. Now I want to show the name field in the title of my activity. So I can type activity.title is equal to cursor.getString. Why getString? Because the type of name field is a string. If, for example, I want to get age field, I need to type getInt. So now I type getString and the name of the field. After retrieving the data from database, it's better to close the cursor to release the memory. So I type cursor.close. Now it's time to run the application. Now you can see the first name here. In this tutorial, I tried to make everything as simple as possible. In other tutorials, I will elaborate them more. So please follow my other tutorials and do not forget to subscribe in my channel and hit the bell. If you have any question, make a comment.